Good evening, everyone. It's a true honor for us to be here tonight. It comes from the bottom of my heart. Living in New York is being connected. It's the city where everything happens first, good or bad. And on the morning of the day it happened, the strength of these great connections that we may have once taken for granted were never demonstrated in a more selfless and courageous way.
So we are here tonight to pay tribute to the men and women who have risked and lost their lives to ensure New York remains the greatest symbol of unity and freedom in the world.
As a part of our event tonight, 5 great American filmmakers have put together their own personal tribute to the city. Tonight's first film artist, who we both had the unique opportunity of working with, he started out wanting to be a parish priest. He ended up being an NYU film student.
There's probably no one who knows the ins and outs of New York better than my friend Marty Scorsese.
These are scenes of an Italian street festival. Actually, it's the Festival of San Ciro. Now, it looks like it comes right out of Sicily, but actually, this is New York. It's Little Italy. These pictures were taken by an uncle of mine back in 1940, over 60 years ago. My grandparents came here at the turn of the century and, in a sense, recreated the life they knew in Sicily, in downtown New York, with all its customs, its rituals, its habits. This is how it goes. My grandparents were Sicilian. My parents became Italian-American. I think of myself as an American-Italian, and I suppose my children are American. And that's why I took my youngest daughter down to the old neighborhood to show her where she came from. Well, at least the Sicilian half of her, anyway. The block I grew up on was Elizabeth Street, between Prince and Houston. Of course, Little Italy is downtown Manhattan, next to the Lower East Side. Mary Albanese, she's 97 years old. She owned the butcher shop across the street from my grandparents, across the street from where I grew up, too. And everything in it is exactly the way it was back then.
First film that I tried to do, this is the opening shot of Mary was cutting the meat. And we shot from across the street at 241, my grandmother's building. We shot down through the window and panned up the block. That was 1963, I think, or 64.
In fact, that's pretty much my point of view of most of my life downtown. From the 3rd floor window looking down. That was only 1 floor away from the roof. And the roof was like God's point of view. The roof was like heaven. It was as close as you can get to heaven. It was like an escape. A place where you could be alone, which was kind of important, especially if you were one of 8 or 9 kids, 14 people living in 3 rooms the way my parents were. In fact, when my mother and father were married in 1933, it was in June. It was so hot that they had the reception on the roof of 232 Elizabeth Street, the building she was born in. Later on, I had the opportunity to try to recreate that in one of my pictures.
Hey, Mickey, how you doing?
Hi,
how are you?
How are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you. Mickey, hi.
What's what?
Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, Mickey's in Raging Bull. He's the bartender at the Copacabana Lounge, and he was the real one.
Right.
He was the real one.
You're looking great.
I'm okay. We shot a
Since you got rid of that damn beard.
Yeah, I know.
Ah, you and that stupid son.
I just did too with the beard. I know.
They were too young to work, so they grew beards to look
To
old.
work is right. Yeah, some. 241. 241, the 3rd floor is where my grandparents were. My father was born, and they all lived, about 14 of them in 3.5 rooms. And that basically represented a lot of people from Polizia Generosa, which was a small village outside of Palermo. Now, across the way here, 232 Elizabeth Street, the same thing happened, only people from Ciamina moved into this building. And as I said, the problem was that if you're living in a village in Sicily, it's very unlikely you're going to marry your spouse from another village or another city because you hardly traveled. But here, the villages were living next to each other. across the street, so they started to intermarry. But that was a very difficult thing. My father was Polizano, my mother was Chiminese, and that was a major sit-down confrontation.
Today, on the surface, it seems obvious that the neighborhood's changed. I mean, it's Asian American, mainly Chinese now. But it's not that simple. This is DePaulo's cheese shop. It's on the corner of Mott and Grand, and it's been there for over 75 years.
When your mother came in here, I always had to have some of this ready for her.
Oh, fantastic. Great.
Just to get a taste of.
Ah, here we go. Thanks a lot. Ah.
It's the same recipe my grandmother did.
Oh. There was one of the younger kids who moved in the neighborhood, came in and asked Mr. DePaulo, said, you're looking at the cheese shop, buying the cheese. He says, so tell me, sir, what made you open a cheese shop in a Chinese neighborhood?
You get people to me, they say, this is not Little Italy anymore. And I tell them, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Yeah.
The spirit of Little Italy, the immigrants that came here, my great-grandfather and grandparents, they struggled. And you look outside and you look down the street and you see this whole group of people. I said, that's the same exact thing as my grandparents and great-grandparents. This neighborhood hasn't changed.
Oh, look at that cheese, huh? Look at that. Oh, look.
This here was my daughter's favorite cheese. In Italy, this is one of the cheeses they feed very, very young babies. They grind it up. Oh, I think that's great.
That was the church I used to do. I used to be an altar boy, and it's the most precious blood. After what? They fired me. Why? Why? Because I couldn't make it on time for the 7 o'clock mass.
Oh yeah, I know the feeling.
I guess you could say that the neighborhood was centered around the church, or in this case, the cathedral. St. Patrick's Old Cathedral was built in 1809. I always wondered when I was a kid, why would the church be named St. Patrick's in a neighborhood that was all Italians? And then I began to realize, of course, we weren't the first ones here. There were plenty of stories of the people who came before us, stories that seemed to come right out of the cobblestones. One of the most extraordinary had to do with the Irish, who came here before us, and it happened right here at St. Patrick's. There were groups of bigots called Know-Nothings. They didn't want the Irish in America at all. This was back in 1844. They gathered together to march down Prince Street from the Bowery to burn and destroy St. Patrick's. But when they got to the corner, they saw that the place was defended, not just by Irish men, but by Irish women and by Irish children, too.
What was interesting about the Know-Nothings is that when they saw that there were women and children and the Archbishop, everybody there, they stopped, simply stopped, turned, and went back. And that was the beginning of the end, the change over acceptance of what America's supposed to be. Letting in the immigrants, letting in other cultures, other religions, other races, and everybody living together in freedom. But the thing is about New York, you know, I had this thing that happened to me in the 1970s. By 1979, I developed a dyslexia. Invariably, I want to say right, but left comes out. I want to say left, but right comes out. And when I think of New York, I want to say New York, but America comes out. And that's real. That's true.